with the past, present, and future, and our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. We'd like to welcome you all to this edition of the Know Your Rights at Ausgang Plaza, and we remind you that DESTA will be recording tonight's event for our podcast, possible inclusion in online diffusion, documentation, and social media. Good evening, everyone. My name is Vince Telemac. I've been working with DESTA for the last 2 years and part of your community in trying to make sure that everyone knows their rights. Tonight we have a very special lineup of incredible people that have been fighting, some for a very long time, some as young as 22, but nonetheless, every single person that we're bringing up here on this stage knows their rights and they're fighting to ensure that everyone in this room has their rights protected. So first and foremost, in 2022, Justice Michel Yergeau of the Superior Court of Quebec made a landmark decision on racial profiling in the case of Joseph-Christopher Luamba versus the Attorney General of Quebec, declaring the power of police services to stop any driver without just cause unconstitutional. If we can have a round of applause, please. Chris Luamba went up against the Attorney General of Quebec. The next person that we have is Lex Gill. Lex Gill is a Montreal-based lawyer with a practice rooted in commitment to social, environmental, and economic justice. We have Schneider Augustin, has worked 25 years with families and more particularly with young people in the Côte-de-Neige neighborhood. He was also part of the court case. We have the attorney Mike Simeon. He will be connecting with us over the phone. He's presently out of town, but wanted to be here. Currently practices in civil and commercial litigation and constitutional law. We have Amanda Maxwell, who has joined the DESTA Black Community Network in 2019, where she works as the Reintegration Support Service Coordinator. If I can have your round of applause as they come meet us on the stage now. Chris, you could take this one here. Just one moment as we connect Mike. Mike? Okay, we just need to check the mic for the phone.
Great.
Okay, perfect. We got you loud and clear.
Perfect.
All right, so just to begin for tonight, if we're all united here today, it is because Chris Luamba, who is sitting at my right, decided to take a stand. If you can just tell us what happened when you got your license.
So basically, I got my license when I was like 18, 19 years old. And as soon as I got my license, like maybe the month after I just got my license, I've been stopped by the police for the first time while driving. And it was while going to school. Basically, it was a Wednesday afternoon, just going to school like a usual kid, you know. And the police came in front of me at the stop. Then I make a turn to the right, and he just followed me till he turned on his lights just to make a verification like we all know. And basically that just shocked me because why would you stop me on a sunny day, Wednesday afternoon? I'm driving a Ford Focus and nothing wrong with it, everything is in order. So it just like triggered some things in me, you know? And after that, it just went on over and over again. And since then, I've been stopped like 10 times, around 10 times by the police since I had my license. And all of them for no reasons, just because of a verification. And for me, this is really like frustrating because as a young black man from Montreal, we are not criminals. Like we didn't do nothing wrong except driving. So why is it so hard to drive where we want to go and be stopped by the police for no reasons at all, actually? So I felt like I had to make something against it because I couldn't support it. And that's why I got my team as Mike, Lex, that's right here, and we all work together to go against the system, and really it's just amazing what we've done yet. So, yeah, basically that's why driven.
So, question for you, Chris. Why did you not just accept this, seeing that this is something that happens so often?
Basically, because as black people, we took this like this is normal. Actually, all black people think this is normal to get stopped by the police for no reason, just for a verification. But it is not normal actually. So we shouldn't normalize something that is not normal. The police, they have no rights to stop us for just a verification because they feel like it, because we look like someone they saw. That no, that's not a valid reason. So they need to have a valid reasons to stop us. Otherwise, just let us go and live our life.
And all right, so to be so young and to feel like you would be able to go against the Attorney General of Quebec, why did you feel like you would be able to do something like that and win?
Good question. Actually, in life, I'm the type of guy that just goes straight ahead, and I'm gonna think after. I'm gonna think about it afterwards. So I'll just go. I'm gonna just try and see where it goes, and we'll figure it out later. But basically, I had this wonderful team behind me with Lex, Mike, and I just felt so good with them. Like I felt like Mike is really like a genius at what he's doing. This lawyer is really amazing. So I just felt like we're gonna win. Actually, everything we put in this plan, we're just gonna win. I was just so confident, So that's what driven me to think that I can go against the system because I had this beautiful team around me,
So before I move to the rest of the panel, what was that process like for you? Were you were going to school at the time while you were actually pursuing the government of Quebec?
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Well, basically it was like a regular student life, I went to school, I worked at the hospital at the time, and from time to time I had some meetings with the team, Lex, Mike, Bruce, that is not with us today. But I can tell you that this was stressful, a lot of stress. At some point, when I saw Mike calling my phone, sometimes I just get like this stomach that just gets me, And, there was a lot of pressure. But one thing that Mike always told me is that no matter what happens, at the end of the day, we're on the good side of the story, We're fighting for a change, so no matter what happens, we did what we had to do. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So, I think within 10 minutes you mentioned Mike at least 4 to 5 times. I think we should find out who Mike is. Mike, are you there?
Yes. Thanks for the kind word, Christopher. It's so kind.
Yes. So, Mike, how long have you been practicing law?
I've been practicing law now for 3 years, and I'm about 2019, but January 2018. So yeah, around 3 years.
All right, and what is that process for you? What was it like for you as a black man becoming a lawyer?
Funny enough, it wasn't. I've never pictured myself as a lawyer, meaning that it's not something that I really grew up to. I'm like, I'm going to become a lawyer when I grew up one day, because it was actually never an image that, even though I would think about it, was never really an image that it's not a possibility. It was not part of the different options that I saw for myself, right? And when I got into law school, I tried to fit in the mold, and it's really was kind of while I'm reflecting and looking, going to law school and so on, it's kind of I feel like the whole process kind of helped me out with the Luamba case, meaning that I understood that the issue was very profound. And, funny enough, one of the first hurdles that I had to face with the Luamba case, it's crazy, but bear with me, it was to show that I, a young black guy, could do that. That this could be that this was not a crazy idea, that a young black guy could actually come up with this. Like, it was actually the first hurdle, one of the first hurdle, I would say, that I faced with this case. To be frankly honest with you, I had people tell me that I was not, after having demonstrated that it was not a crazy idea, that perhaps I was not the one that should bring this forward, and that I was not competent enough. So there was crazy enough that this a huge part of it was to demonstrate that I was able to do it. So when you asked me a question like, how is it to be a young black lawyer? Well, you know, while fighting for a case about discrimination, you have to fight the first battle. Let's put it that way.
I got you. So you had to fight that battle in your head to say, am I the right person to do this? Another question for you. As a black man living in Montreal, have you ever experienced racial profiling?
I absolutely did. Now, not anymore. And I will presume that, I will presume certain things, but not anymore. It's been, when I was much younger, it would happen like, it wouldn't pass, like, for example, if 2-3 months would pass without me being pulled over for no reason, like, perhaps it would be the exception was when I was much younger. I used to live in the West Island, and my parents had, each one of my parents had a car, and usually either one of the car would be like a nice car, and it kind of became like kind of almost a routine. Well, this is how it is, I'm gonna get up now, getting pulled over, and know what's happening, and then it's, and the crazy thing is that what I was always curious about, it was the fact that the cops knew what was going on, right? He knew he was pulling you over because you're a young black guy driving this car, and he knew you knew, right? It's kind of, I don't know if you understand what I mean, but you knew why you got pulled over, and he knew that you are going to be cooperative because you know you can't do anything, right? So yeah, it did happen.
So another question for you, Mike. As a lawyer dealing with a racial profiling case, you've been racially profiled a lot of times when you were young. Did you have any challenges emotionally? Because I could imagine as a lawyer, you got to keep your calm. Like, how did you manage to deal with your emotions fighting something that was so clear in a province like Quebec, where they say systemic racism does not exist?
It was quite hard, to be honest. Throughout the entire process, throughout the entire 3 years, it was hard making sure I was not, by being, personally involved, I was not undermining the initiative, and I was not doing something wrong for the case, right? I always tried to do what was right for the case, what was right for Christopher. At the end of the day, I was representing a client, and each and every single decision I had to make was based on the promise that I made to myself at the beginning, the promise that I made to Christopher, which is everything I'll do, it will be in your best interest, right? And sorry, can you remind me the question exactly?
You answered the question very well. So basically, you put your emotions on the side, and you just thought what was in the best interest of your client, who not just happened to be.
It was not easy, I remember during the trial, at one point I was just I remember there was one example where I just cracked up, and I remember I was with Bruce Johnson, workers, and one of the Lex's colleague, an excellent lawyer, by the way, both Lex and Gil, excellent lawyers, and yeah, it was quite hard, and it was quite, how can I say, quite Spence, I remember vividly one time when you came to testify, and now perhaps in my head, and I'm not the one who took the but I remember when you came to testify, which, by the way, you gave an excellent testimony. I remember one thing you said while you were about to get in the courtroom, you said, I'm just happy to see this. And you pointed at me and then Alexandre was a lawyer then, Alexandre Guéméné was now a judge. You pointed at both of us and you said, I'm just happy to see this. I understood what you meant by that, right? And all this, it's a nice emotion. I did that emotional way. And even getting emotional now think about it, because it's kind of, yes, you get it. We took care of it. We young black men did this, and I understood what you mean by that, and it's part of the, I guess it is. There's about the amount of there was a huge gamme, I would say, d'émotion. Like there's a big huge,
I got you. Right?
Sometimes, and
I definitely feel you. We're gonna keep on going with the conversation. I'm gonna move to my left. To my left is probably, for me, one of the greatest leaders in Montreal. Yes. Like he said, he's been working in Montreal for about 25 years. Schneider, why did you choose to give so much of your time to the community?
Wow, listen, thank you for having me here. So I'm going to try to do my best. I'm more French, but listen, I'm going to practice my English today. So why? It's because I grew up in Côte-des-Neiges, Black Montreal, and all my life, and then poverty, and then violence. And then I remember growing up in Côte-des-Neiges, police used to call a name. I don't know how they used to have a name, so they used to pass and they call, hey, Schneider. And I was not a drug dealer, or they used to call a name. I don't know how they get it. So for me, growing up in Côte-des-Neiges was really hard. First of all, I was a French guy, and it was hard for me because we didn't speak English, first of all. So we was always fighting. So growing up, I was in my building where I was growing up. I think I was the only guy who went to college first, because everybody was in my building. They take another path. So for me, when I went to university, I remember I used to say, listen, I'm going to learn something just to make my mom happy too, get that paper, and then go back in my neighborhood and try to give back to my neighborhood. So I see all those family was living in the neighborhood was suffering. For me, it was just, I don't know, I choose to work at the community center also with people just to give back to my community. I always want my community to be, Côte-des-Neiges to be the best place, and where families and kids can be happy though. So for me, I think I answered the question, my man.
Yes, so
yeah.
Right now in Montreal, there's like a big campaign with the police trying to work with the community. They call it community policing and stuff like that. I remember we had a conversation and you were talking about how, I'm quite sure for some of you in the crowd, I don't know if you've ever been at a community center, and we wanted to prepare you to know what your rights would be when it comes to the police. Can you tell us about your endeavor to kind of get youth comfortable with police and what to do? And could you tell us that story?
Well, I can go with my story. And then in 2009, I still remember that day like yesterday, because it was the baby shower. I have two kids, two beautiful daughters. And that day was the baby shower. People was waiting for me at my house. So I didn't have time to do, sometimes how we are men, we're always late. So I didn't have time to do my lineup. So that Sunday I said, something, before everybody arrive, so let me run to Côte-des-Neiges. Now I live in Brossard, so I said, let me run to Côte-des-Neiges and then do my lineup, do my chats, how Haitians say. So when I reached in Côte-des-Neiges, Côte-des-Neiges, I grew up there, so all my landmark is in Côte-des-Neiges. So I went to my barbershop. So I parked my car up front of the barbershop on Côte Saint-Catherine. And then, I don't know, I was so maybe cheap that day, I didn't want to pay no parking. So I said, you know something, let me take my car and then let me get out from the parking and then go park my car to another street so I don't have to pay the $1, you know, so cheap. And then when I was getting out from the parking, it was a police car who passed me, and then we have eye contact, nothing, you know. So I turn on, I think, my right, park my car. So I think that the police have time to make a U-turn, and an illegal U-turn, and then they come to my street. So, but me, I was already out of my car, so I was walking, going through toward the barbershop. So they was coming so slow. So I said, okay, I grew up like that. I know what that means. So they're gonna stop looking at me, and then so when the police arrived just next to me, my level, so it was two cops, a black one who was driving and a white police, and the white police put down the passenger window. So the black police say, "Hey you, hey, c'est quoi ton nom?" Okay, I said, "Hi sir." I said, "Do you have a reason why you want to know who I am?" And he asked me a second time, "Hey, c'est quoi ton nom?" So I said, "Sir, listen, you don't want to give me no reason why you want to know who I am. So that's my car. Can you tap my plate and you're gonna know who I am?" So what happened is that I think he get mad. So he get out from the car. Man, the guy do a kung fu on me because I didn't see him coming. So the only thing I remember it was I had my twin behind my back, handcuffed, and then he started searching me, and then after that, I used to have a hat that day. So what happened, he take my hat and he put it in the side. I said, "Sir, listen, first of all, you didn't even read me my right, what you arrest me for, okay? And can you put back my hat the way he was, because you try to give me a look that I'm not." I was so mad, so mad. So what happened, but I kept my calm, you know? So what happened is that he searched me, and then after that, he went in my car, he took my key, he opened my car, and then he said, "You have drugs, do you have any gun?" And I laughed, I said, "Sir, if you're looking for, I don't know who you're looking for, but you don't have the right person." But in my head, seriously, at that time, I was thinking, man, I do everything right. You know, I go, like, I live, I work, the thing, what happened is that, the story is that they put me inside of the car, and then the police was searching in his computer. "Oh, you don't have no criminal record?" Or I said, "Sir, no." I don't know. I said, "No." And then he keeps searching. So the white police who was there, the how you say that? Comment je pourrais te le dire? La crème de l'histoire is that the white police, 2 weeks before I get arrested, we was in a meeting with the big chief of the police, and it was all the police of the station was there. And as a coordinator, we was trying to find solution how we can stop racial profile with our own kids in the neighborhood, because that's what a lot of kids used to bring to us. Say, "Man, I get arrested for no reason. I don't know what to do." So that's why when we bring that to the police station, to the chief, so we organized a meeting. And then he was so cool because we was trying to find out, we're going to do soccer, play a basketball, whatever. And seriously, I get up from that meeting saying, finally, we find so we're gonna have a solution how to, find a way to talk. Exactly. And the white police, okay, was at my table that day.
Wow.
We were sitting down, laughing, and then when I realized that I was wasting my time because it was still searching for something, so they didn't find nothing. So I said, "Sir, listen." I turned to the white police. I said, "By the way, listen, man. I'm working at the community center on Côte des Neiges. I work with the youth. And do you remember 2 weeks ago we make a meeting, and you were sitting down on my table,
Wow.
And then today I'm the one who's behind of your car." Guys, that was so funny because the two police get out of the car, they talk. I don't know what they say. They come back because ils ont tellement serré they tied it so hard my handcuffs. So they went out and they talk and they came back, and I said, "Sir, can you just coming up to that, to make it loose a little bit." So after they say, "Okay, you know something, I'm gonna let you go." I said, okay. So, but before that, they said they were searching. They said, okay, we're gonna give you a ticket of $600. I said, why? Because we asked you for your license, and then you didn't give it. You didn't give it to us. I said, sir, listen. First of all, I was in the sidewalk. I was walking. Usually, do you stop someone and ask him who's walking? Do you ask him, can I have your license? I said, don't make no sense. So at the end, they said, okay, you can go. So I said, you know something? I remember when we was at that meeting with the police, the big chief was saying, you know, if something like that happened to one of your kids, don't be shy. Just come to the station and let's have a talk. And then ask the kids to just ask for the paper,
to make a complaint.
To make a complaint. So I said, you know, I was really mad. I even have time to do my chats or my lineup. I went straight to the police station. And when I arrived to the police station, I asked the police who was there, can I see the person who's in charge? And the sergeant, he was I remember, a tall guy. So he came, and then I said, sir, listen, I just get arrested for no reason, and I work in Côte d'Ivoire. Imagine that our parents saw me like with handcuffs, saying that, okay, they call me Buki in Côte d'Ivoire. Oh, Buki working in the wiki is a good guy, and the weekend is a drug dealer or a bum. I don't know. So I said, I really didn't appreciate it, so I want to file a complaint about what just happened. Can I have the paper, please? So the surgeon said, he started trying to convince me. And the second thing, he said, yo, you know, I was working in Saint Michel. One time I take off my gun and I put it in someone's head, but it was a mistake. I said, oh, okay. So thank you very much. I didn't want to know that story because I didn't find it funny also. So I said, can I have the paper? And he get mad. He said, no, if you want the paper, you go straight to internet and then you will find it. I said, so I get mad and I leave the station. Before I leave the station, I turned back and I said, sir, maybe I don't have internet at home. You know, just to make him think about something, because they use what the chief said. He said, go back and ask for the paper. They have to give you. They have to give the paper to any kids. All right. So I go home. My wife was so in shock because I still look like, you know, with nappy head, my nappy head, and whatever I did do, my beard and nothing. So I explained to my wife what happened, and all my people was already, the guest was home. And then imagine that when I started explaining my story to the people who was at my house, the cousin of the police, the black police, was one of my best friends. And he asked me, what's the name of the police? I give him the name. He said, what? All right. So I called one of my friends who's that her mother is a lawyer, and I explained it. I was so mad that I didn't know how to react. So I said, let me call someone and then find how they can help me. So I called my friend, the mother of my friend, and then she said, you know something, Schneider? You have make a complaint, and then I will help you to go through it. So that's how my story goes. And then for me, and then the crazy part is that story take 7 years. My daughter starts school.
Oh my God.
I remember she was inside of my white belly. She get out and she starts talking, walking, dancing. And then he takes 7 years before we go to trial.
Wow.
And that's it.
What gave you the perseverance to keep? I mean,
but seriously, I always say to people, because a lot of people ask me that question, and I said I didn't go to trial for money. I didn't do it for money. I do it for respect. I do it for the youth in Côte d'Ivoire, for Montreal, North, Saint Michel, everywhere, because I know a lot of black kids or black Latinos or whatever go through that type of situation. So I do it really for those people. And I think that, and also for my daughters, for my kids, just show them example that. And I always say to other kids also, even if you have a criminal record, you say that. Yeah. So it's okay. You have rights. You have rights. So you need to fight for your rights. So for me, it was it was a normal thing to do.
I got you. And 7 years later during the trial, what was the result?
The result, so at the end, we went to conciliation because what happened is that at the court, I think we win a couple of times, and it was supposed to go to Supreme Court or Superior. And then my lawyer said, you know something, they're gonna try to make that thing go maybe another 5 years just to drop the case. So let's go to a negotiation. So we went to negotiation. First of all, I forget to say that I make a criminal complaint about the two police. And then for the surgeon, we went to the ontology. And the ontologie policière, so with the surgeon. So when I remember the first time when I went there, there was like 6 or 7 lawyers of the city. And me, I was by myself with, I think with,
legal aid?
Yeah, legal aid. And it was a type of, it was not scary, but it's intimidating. So just to see that you have the power to pay like 6, 7 lawyers, you know, just to defend you, and then. But I think so. I think that you are doing. I really go forward for the kids, for youth, for the population, for Black population and Latinos, Chinese, everybody, every youth in the community of Golden Edge.
How did you feel testifying in the case of Chris?
Listen, I remember how I get to testify on is because I was doing activities with Telemark, and then he invited me to do because since COVID I do art and then I was talking to one of your kids about police. So because it was dry, I think he make a police car, and then I asked him a question, and he said because he's scared, sometimes he don't know how police gonna react. I remember that type of conversation we had, and then and I start explaining to him that one day I get arrested for no reason, but I go forward. I sue the police. I sue the city of Montreal. And then you ask me, and you say, "Oh, you hear my story?" And then you say, "Schneid, you have a story. I have someone who's working in the case of the Mumba. Let's get the contacts. Let me call the lawyer." So that's how I've been implicated on your.
But how did you feel?
The feel,
when
man.
you testified in court against the police?
Oh, sorry, I go with my story. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I lose my. But listen, it's crazy because I feel like he was not dream come true, but it was a dream. I didn't know if I was dreaming or not, because especially for your age, 22. When I heard that you was 22, 22, I said, "Wow, he had the courage. He had the courage to go." To sue the city, the government. So for me, he was a duty for me just to l'accompagner là-dedans. Tu comprends? So I think that was when I wake up from the dream is when they say you win the case. Seriously, because I didn't believe it. That's what I was saying to a girl. I didn't believe it even when I was inside of the cards, because I think that maybe I know we're fighting against a system. So for me, it was, I don't know if he was going to win it, but when we win that thing, man, I was like, it's a kid of 22 years who bring that. He made it happen. He make it happen.
How long were you fighting?
Actually, we started around 2020, maybe like November 2020, if I remember. Yes, from November 2020 till we got the decision on the October 25th in 2022. So around 2 years, actually. Yeah.
Around 2 years, and he was fighting for 7.
7 years, imagine. And seriously, I used to have that slogan of not Malcolm, it's not Martin Luther King, I have a dream. And then the dream was coming to reality. So thank you, my man. I really appreciate you. And something I want my kids to look after you, man.
Yes, progress. Lex Gill, you've been practicing law for quite some time now. What was it like for you to take on this type of case with Mike? Hold on.
There it works. It's an honor. It was an honor. It was an honor to work with Mike. It was an honor to work with Christopher. I think you know, you go to law school. Not everyone goes to law school this way, but lots of people go to law school, and I think they want to, you know, the world is full of injustice and bullies and suffering, and you just want to do something to chip away at that. And, you know, unfortunately, courts are inherently conservative institutions. They're 5-10 years behind the culture at the best of times. And the opportunity to really make a big change doesn't come along every day. You know, the courts are very individual. You're always in the universe of one person's story, one person's trial. It's hard to mount these big systemic challenges. And so when the Canadian Civil Liberties Association called me and they said, look, there's this case. We have to get in there. The plaintiff's lawyer wants us to get in there. We've got to do this together. The time is now. You know, we've got this moment. We've got to seize it. I mean, I think you know, it's stupid to say this because everybody knows that this is a profound injustice. It's ridiculous that we had to go to court to prove it, to be honest. Mm-hmm. You know, but in a way, it was like an idea whose time has come for the courts to be able to sort of parse these issues, to see this reality for the first time, and so to play any role in getting this kind of judgment through the system. I think it was through their honor.
And would you say, before taking this case, would you say that the idea of racial profiling and the problem of it in Montreal, was it a surprise to you?
No, I don't think so. Well, not for me, but I think it is for white people generally. And so so I think that I think I had been doing work around issues of equality rights and police powers for a long time, right? And so I think I had a certain awareness of these issues. I also had an awareness of these issues because it was real in my community, in the community I grew up in, and my friendships with, you know, my partners, my exes, my, you know, friends and family. So I saw it. I don't think, though, that that's necessarily the reality for the legal system as a whole. I think courts, judges, overwhelmingly old, powerful white people who went to like 3 different private schools in Quebec, okay? You know, can I talk? I'll tell the story of the fish, because I think the fish are a story in our trial, okay? I think it's like there's a story of these 2 young fish who are swimming in the water. And an older fish goes by and he says, "Hey boys, how's the water?" One fish looks at the other and he goes, "What the hell is water?" And, you know, talking about systemic racism in a courtroom is a little bit like that. Mm-hmm. You're spending like 7 weeks in trial trying to prove that water exists. Mm-hmm. You know?
Wow.
And so I think that when you think about like, you know, what's the awareness? Are you aware of racial profiling? Are the courts aware of racial profiling? It's almost like sometimes there are injustices that are so big that it's hard to see them. You know? And so I think that was the work we were doing in the context of this case.
Wow.
Woo!
Powerful.
The first time I told Chris this story, it was like in witness preparation in 2020. I was like, listen, we're going to talk about these fish for a while.
So, you partnering with Mike, I remember us talking just a few moments ago. What was that like, knowing that, I don't know, like a court looking at Mike trying to take a case about racial profiling, being a black man? Like, how did you feel like that was?
It's really complicated. I mean, Mike is an incredible lawyer. Mike, I know you're still there. You're an incredible lawyer. Don't let it go to your head. You know, but like, let's be real. Like, we're dealing with binding Supreme Court precedent. We're dealing with kind of inherently conservative institution. We're young people. We're going up against the status quo. And, you know, it's also when you're talking about this, you know, I think that the legal institution likes to think of itself as progressive. And that's one thing when you're talking about, like, diversity on boards of directors of your oil company, you know? It's a little different when you start talking about like taking away power from the police. You know, so I think it's easy to talk about things like racism when it's just about representation. But when it's about power, it becomes very hard. And the case that Mike had put together, this case is about power, taking away power from the state. And I think that's, you know, it's a hard ask to make from the court. And so the pressure as a lawyer is that you have to be, you know, you always have to be excellent for your clients, but you have to be more excellent than excellent. You know, you have to put together a perfect case. You know, the standard is so high. And I saw, Mike, I hope you don't hate me for saying this, but I saw that the pressure you put on yourself was to be more than perfect, you know, more excellent than excellent, and understanding that everything we did in that courtroom wasn't just going to reflect on us, wasn't just going to reflect on you, but was going to reflect on, you know, how the court saw you as a black lawyer, how the court understood what it meant to be a black man. And I think that's such an unfair pressure that was on you. It's a challenge that like you met and exceeded, but it was hard sometimes to have to bear witness to that unfairness that was happening kind of like at a meta level in the context of the trial. Not sure if I'm like saying that right, but you know what I mean?
Mike, you there?
Sorry, I came on the spot.
Mike.
Yes, I am.
So how do you respond to that when it comes to that pressure?
You know, it's I feel like I'm not part of the you know, Lex, Bruce, and I have been very close for the past years when you think about it since that case, and they kind of, you know, see me at a different stage of the entire file, and it's you know, I think it was hard to hold myself, like trying at least to hold myself to you know, the same standard that you know, you would expect from, for example, from what the so-called big law firm, right? Saying so-called because, you know, well, that's another topic, but and you know, so I was always trying to be prepared, always trying to be you know, be credible whenever we brought something forward, and it goes not only in the research or, you know, drafting the argument, but also in terms of logistics. So having you know, just, you know, the formatting, just having everything being perfect. And this, since I was not a big law firm, it was me and my two students, and well, thank God, also Trudel Johnson Esperance, Lex's law firm, kind of really helped. For example, in terms of logistics, I'll give you an example. When we had to make her prepare plan plaidoirie, for lack of translation, the kind of the overall argument, the plan you put forward, and it's kind of a lot of work just to build the book of authorities, which was done by Lex's firm, and you know, but everything, yeah, in terms of stress, it was just making sure that if we did lose, I just didn't want to look back and tell myself that I just got lazy at one point. And so I just want to make sure that this didn't happen. So I feel the pressure probably came from just not making sure that we look back and we can say that if we fail, well, we can't, no one can tell us that we should have worked harder.
I got you. You know, when I'm hearing everything that Chris, what you said, what Mike said, what you said, and what Lex said, I feel like it's like the equivalent of having the pressure of every single black person in Quebec. Pretty much. You get what I'm trying to say? That case, it's not even just about you, but every single person, people that are not even born yet. You know, you mentioned your child was in the belly. You get what I'm trying to say? Like it's powerful. And to transition from a child being in the belly, I want to move towards Amanda Maxwell. Amanda, you're a mother of how many children?
3.
All right. And one of the children you have is a son.
Exactly, yeah.
When you hear about Chris, about Schneider, about myself, about so many different people from the community having a son, how does that make you feel when you think of racial profiling?
Well, I'll start off by saying when Lex asked me to be a part of the trial, I felt like what I had to say didn't add any value. So I'm like, it happens all the time, nothing changes. But then when we got there for prep, and then I just explained my fears for my son, who was 17 at the time, just learning to drive, and my fear all the time, him going in the metro from being stopped. He's a big kid, my nephews are big. So my fear always is them seeing him and not seeing him as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So their first initial reaction would be, this is someone we need to be afraid of. So that's always a fear. And so to be a part of this, I felt like it was an honor. At the time, I didn't really take it, I took it for granted, the magnitude of what it was gonna become, because I was like, it's not gonna go anywhere. But then when we got to your office and I really understood, like, this is gonna be huge. And I knew from then that you guys were gonna win. I felt it. I told you, right? I was like, it's gonna be huge. It's gonna be like, not just for my son, but for my future grandchildren and the next generations to come. Like, what you did, what you guys did is enormous.
For the people in the crowd, by show of hands, how many of you knew about this case? All right, just a couple. Just a couple. When everyone should know about this. What was the feeling like when you took the stand and you actually snitched on the police? What was that like? What was that like?
Well, for me, it didn't feel, it felt like me just speaking my truth. Me as a mother to an only son, you know how I feel about my boy.
Sorry, Shay.
You know, I was just telling my truth, my fears, my realities as, you know, a mother to a black child, to an aunt, to 8 nephews. That is my truth. So it didn't feel like I was on trial. I was just really just expressing my realities as a mother.
And could you let the crowd know what was the situation for you when you got, or your family got racially profiled? Could you explain that situation?
Yeah, originally I was taking my son to basketball. I don't know if my daughter remembers. She blocks out a lot of things, but we were going to basketball at Sun Youth, and at, I think it's, I'm not sure which street name is, but anyways, long story short, I was with their dad, and we just got pulled over for no reason. But they didn't come to me, they immediately went to him on his side.
Who was driving?
I was driving. And so they made me pull over, and then they started talking to him, asking him a bunch of questions. So I was like, you know, I'm driving, what did I do? You know, you shouldn't be talking to him, he's the passenger. They were like, well, open your trunk, stuff like that, made him get out the car. So at the time I was like, I'm taking out my phone, I started recording. My kids were in the back. I think my daughter, actually, yeah, my youngest was a baby at the time. And I started to record. So once we started to record, then they were kind of like, okay, well, you guys can go.
Wow.
And did you know, what did you feel like that was? Did you know, how did you sum that up?
Part of the reality, like they seen us, we were driving down St. Laurent, a black guy in a car, and they didn't even have no regards for my kids in the back seat. And to be honest, my son didn't even say anything, he didn't cry. It was just like a normal reaction. I think my daughter, she started to cry as we drove up the street. But
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So even for your daughter, young kids, their first contact with the police is not something positive.
Yeah, where I'm from, it's never something positive. They're always afraid. Their first response is to be afraid of the police. You're not like some kids, and I see it all the time, they see a police officer or firefighter, they drive by, they're waving. Black kids don't have that response. They're not waving, you know what I mean? Their first response is fear, unfortunately.
See, what you say hits home so much because I don't know if the crowd is aware, but a couple days ago, this week, there was an 8-year-old boy who was in elementary school in LaSalle, and he had a fight. After he had the fight, they called the police to pick up an 8-year-old boy. But before the police came, I believe the principal and another person from the school sat on the boy to hold him and restrain him. His eye became swollen. His parents reached out to the school board, and they're just brushing them off. It's not the first time I've heard something like this. I remember even myself, I had a young guy that I was working with that was 10 years old, and he was bigger for a 10-year-old. He had a fight at school, and they arrested him. He was in handcuffs. You follow me? This is not something that I feel like is a random thing that happens just every now and then. This is something that I feel like is very rampant in our communities. Schneider and Amanda, seeing that y'all work in the community so much, right? Just how much do you feel like it's effective when we tell youth about their rights? When we tell youth, like, you know what, when the police stop you, you can do X, Y, Z. Do you even feel like that's effective when they know their rights?
Up until now, I probably would have felt like, what's the point? Because even though you may know your rights, you could still be victimized by the police. They'll still beat you down, arrest you for no reason. But you guys give me hope that if something does happen, you do have rights and you can pursue and win.
Like me, I can say that, you know, sometimes I have a lot of talk with my youths and at the center, and a lot of kids who, you know, kids is kids, you know, sometimes they're gonna do crazy stuff because they have a criminal record. Sometimes they're scared to go forward. They say, but listen, Schneider, man, they know I'm a drug dealer. They know I sell drugs. So even if they beat me up, what you want me to do?
Right.
You know? So for me, it's always try to let them know their rights, let them know that it's possible. Don't ever, you have rights as a human being. Just the fact that you work like me, and then you have the rights to go forward. If you feel that they didn't respect you, make a complaint. That's it. I said at the end, it's a judge who's gonna gonna make the decision. But a lot of kids sometimes now more and more with that woke, we're talking about what's going on woke. But a lot of kids now, ils se réveillent, they wake up, and so for me, I think on at least we have hope.
Lex, could you let us know, for anyone in the crowd that is like completely unaware of what their rights are when they are pulled over? I do understand you guys did win in court, but right now the decision got appealed. Could you explain to the crowd what that means, and if you could after that touch on what do our rights look like as citizens when we're behind the wheel?
Okay, so yeah, it's really important to know that this decision has been appealed. So what the Superior Court said was that the power that lets police officers stop a car driver for no reason at all, who's doing nothing wrong, who didn't commit an infraction, isn't driving dangerously, doesn't look suspicious, just the raw power to stop a driver for no reason, that's unconstitutional because it facilitates racial profiling, it's an infringement of your liberty rights, it's an unlawful detention. You can't justify it in a free and democratic society. That's what the court said, okay? Now, what that means is that if that judgment hadn't been appealed, then police would just not have this power anymore at all. But because the decision was appealed, the effects of the judgment are suspended. So we have to go to the Court of Appeal, we have to have this argument again, hopefully within the next year, and then have a final judgment, whether from the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court, to concretize that. So what that means is today, a police officer can stop a driver for no reason, for the purpose of checking their license, their sobriety, their identification, okay? Now that said, they're on notice that a very well-reasoned judgment thinks that there's a real serious constitutional problem with this. And so I think, we have to understand that even though the effects of the judgment are suspended, there's a very strong message that's sent to law enforcement from the court here. And other judges are picking this up, and so it's part of the political context that police are doing their work. So what are your rights in general? Okay, when you're driving, you have to obviously stop. If you're pulled over, you have to provide that information. If you're asked to do a sobriety test, you have to do it, okay? But you have a right to silence otherwise. You don't have to talk to the police. And the other important thing is this case is really about roadside stops. But what we know is that a lot of people, especially young people, they're dealing with police stopping them on the sidewalk in their communities, okay? And so there the context is different. And there is no police power to stop you for no reason and ask for your identification. You have no obligation to talk to the police about anything, okay? If a police officer stops you and starts asking you questions, you can say, am I free to go? And if the answer is no, you're being detained, you have a right to silence, you have a right to a lawyer, you shouldn't talk to the police at that point. And if they say, yeah, you're free to go, you should go. Mm-hmm. In my legal opinion, okay? And so, obviously what's complicated is that those are your rights in law. In practice, it can be very different, right? The power relationship between a young person, especially if you're like somewhere where there's not a lot of visibility, maybe you don't have a lot of witnesses, maybe you're in an unfamiliar place, or the police officer, maybe there's more than one police officer. You're always trying to balance what your rights are legally with what you can how you can kind of survive a situation. And so I think it's important to understand it in that context too. But, so I think it's important to understand that when you're legally detained, which means either a police officer tells you you can't go, or you feel psychologically like you can't go, regardless of what the police officer actually said.
Nikas!
Pardon?
Nikas!
Oh, yeah, well, and Nikas, we were talking about Nikas Dandre Spring, who died just before Christmas at Bordeaux, and I won't talk about his case too much specifically because I'm sure that will end up before the courts. But there's a person who legally was not supposed to be in a prison, not supposed to be there. He's supposed to be with his family. So what the law says you have a right to and what happens in practice are often two different things. But it's important to know that you do have these rights, and it's constantly asserting them over and over again. That's what changes the culture. That's what creates the factual space to do this kind of litigation work, to change things through the courts. And so I think, there's so many layers of injustice here. One of the injustices is that practical fight for our rights is disproportionately borne by people who are, experiencing discrimination, people who are racialized, people who are vulnerable, people who are marginalized in all kinds of ways. So that's the context. I feel like I just went on a big rant, but there you go. The Constitution, it's real, it's not perfect.
Just, I don't remember, it's just that the trauma in our community and the Black community is so high, it's so deep. So a lot of kids, they even hear the police name, they're scared. Even they don't want to deal with police at all. Me growing up, I remember Marcellus Francois. I don't know if you guys was born, but me, it was my neighbor. His brother was my friend. When this guy passed away, Marcellus passed away, it was a shock. I was scared. Police was not my friend. I was scared of police. So in our community, the trauma is make sure that we work through our trauma, and then also teach the kids, keep teaching kids how to respond to police, like you said, how to act when the police stop you. Because sometimes we get so scared or we don't know. So that's what they use against us. Usually because you might scared and you touch a police up. So we have to teach them. We have to keep going with those type of workshop you're doing. For me, it's really a beginning of.
I feel you on that. And when it comes to that conversation, I got a question for Chris, a question for Amanda. Were you prepared by your parents when it comes to racial profiling? And did you prepare your son for it? Chris?
Me, yes, obviously. My mom, actually, she told me once, as soon as I got my license, she always told me, like, to be careful when I'm driving, you know. Don't drive too fast, you know. Always buckle your seatbelt. And, you know, just, if you're getting pulled over, just, like, sois coopératif.
Be cooperative.
Be cooperative with the police, like, answer his questions, show your hands and everything. So you know what we call the talk, actually. Yes, I had it, of course, because as a young black man, it's sad to say, but we all go through this at some point, you know. So you gotta get ready for that, no matter what, you know. So yeah, I've been prepared for it, and I hope that we're gonna have to finish this soon. You know, that I won't have to tell my kids the same talk, you know.
For me, I think I had that conversation with my son probably when he went to private school. So it came before like knowing your rights or being aware of the police. It was just being aware of that you're a black boy in a white school. Mm-hmm. So you're gonna have to work twice as hard. And if Jimmy's acting the fool, you can't act the fool. Mm-hmm. You don't have the same privileges Jimmy has because they're gonna kick you out.
Right.
While Jimmy's parents have the money to say, okay, you know what? Jimmy's acting the fool and that it will be what it will be. Mm-hmm. So I had to have that conversation earlier on. And unfortunately, I should have had that conversation with my daughter because she goes to private school as well. And she faces many microaggressions and racism probably through all of high school. She's going to college now. Mm. I should have understood that it was going to affect her as well and could affect her later on. Mm-hmm. But for my son with driving, I'm afraid of him even taking the metro, to be honest, mm-hmm. because I feel like one day he was stopped, him and his friends going to basketball practice, and he called me, like he always does, and he said, "Mommy, they're stopping me." It was my son, his friend Prince, and my nephew O'Shea, and they're all big kids. And I flew down there as fast as I could. I think I was with my sister. And just because I'm so afraid that they see these guys and they're just going to be like, okay, I'm going to do something to them. So I have to have the conversation all the time, whether it be driving or taking the metro. And unfortunately, I have to say, like, don't react like this. And it's just not fair that he can't just, you know, be himself or whatever. But it's just the reality.
So basically, what you did is basically an effort to eliminate the need of having that talk. But at the same time, when I think about your case, not only did you get myself involved, you had Schneider involved, you had Amanda involved, and other people I imagine that all have different pieces of going through this discrimination and racial profiling. I just feel like, just wow. It's a domino effect, and I don't know how to express to you just how much I esteem you, how much I respect you, how much I Amanda knows because we work together, but you just don't know. You follow me? Just how much, like, I don't know. You know, when I look
your name in every room. Every room, he makes sure your name comes up. He wants everybody to know about what he does.
Yeah. We're gonna have Scott come. Oh yes, Mike. Yes.
You know, it's been Christopher was you know, he was of course very young when this case started, and you know, I remember notably 2 instances where we faced, I can't get into the details, but we kind of faced, it was like a kind of also like a financial, let's say, challenge, meaning that we faced 2 instances where it could have like a huge impact on, well, the both of us, if you want. And I remember Christopher at those 2 moments, and I explained to him what was at stake. And he had, how can I say, he had, there's two, and there's many, but there's two like principal occasions where Christopher had a good reason to step back and be like, Mike, this is too much, and I'm out, right? And I remember exactly those two instances, and Christopher did not step back, even though I explained to him the risk, and he agreed to keep going forward. And unfortunately, we can't get into details on it because the case is not over. I don't want to waive anything to do with attorney-client privilege, but you guys have to understand that it even goes further than what we can imagine in terms of, he had the courage to keep going when he had every reason to stop.
Well, thank you guys, thank you. I don't know what to say, honestly. I don't like being on the spotlight like this, but I appreciate it. And actually, all that, c'est remerciements que vous me donnez, but I want to give them back to you as well, because especially those fans, I learned so much from you since the day I knew you, since when I talked to you for the first time. And especially Mike too, because since day one, it's just inspiring me to do, like, chase what I want in life and don't be afraid. And this guy is just so, like, meticulous. It's just, I don't know how to say it, but Mike is just like one of my biggest motivators in life. So that's why I talk about him so much. And besides this case, actually, when I started, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into because I was still young, I didn't know what the repercussion would be. All I wanted to do was to make a change, All I wanted to do was to change the system, go against something that is wrong, That's all I had in mind back then. So the further we went, and at the end of the day, when we won, when we had the decisions, I just felt like this whole thing, it just like gave me like a purpose because I received like so many kind words from everybody, like Maurice thanking me for their child, and some things they even brought tears into my eyes as I read them. So but it just gave me a purpose to just make an impact on the community and just keep doing what's right, just go against everything that's wrong. And one of my main values actually is freedom, and I just want to free my people from everything.
I also just want to say, go Mike, go.
The real one, last one. I just want to, Lex is still here?
Yes.
I just want to give a big thanks to Lex and Bruce. They've been, how can I say, we need to understand that when we think about bringing an argument with a lot of credibility, there's also part of it is also trying to connect with the court, right? And it's also trying to have people that have the openness and to not only understand an issue but understand what it means to other people. Like it's a deep question of empathy and also of sensitivity to the issue. And Lex and Bruce showed an extreme openness and an extreme sensitivity for the case and an extreme sensitivity for what we were going on. And they put in words to it. The example that Lex gave, it's a clear example of that. And they presented it to the court in a way that could have only been done by people like them, not like us. Because me saying that, here's the issue, and for us it's different. Well, no, because the judge is a white person, and it's kind of they brought it forward in a way that only them could do, right? And I think they did with a lot of integrity and a lot of talent. So I think we should all raise our hands to them.
the things you were like, what was it like, you know, kind of going through this process. But in looking at the people on this stage, you know, obviously Christopher, you're a star. We know you're amazing. Mike, we know you're amazing. But Amanda, Spence, Schneider, the three of you were witnesses in this trial. Okay? Actually, it's a real honor as a lawyer to examine a witness in trial, and they still want to be in the same room as you. You know, it's hard. It's hard as a lawyer to ask people to come to a courtroom and tell their story that is, you know, humiliating, dehumanizing, profoundly unfair, a violation of their rights. And to say, come, take a day off work, why don't you? Share your trauma with this institution that, by the way, you have no reason to trust or have any faith in. Trust me, random white lawyer you just never met, you know, let's all go talk about racial profiling together, that'll be fun. You know, like, it's a huge ask. It's huge, and we talked to, and Mike can tell you too, we talked to probably hundreds of people who, for all kinds of really legitimate reasons, said they couldn't do it. They were worried about their jobs. They felt that they weren't in a position to relive the trauma. They had pending court cases. They were afraid that they wouldn't be model witnesses. You know, so just the courage, the extraordinary courage that it takes to say yes and go and testify. And that is not to undermine the courage of people who couldn't for one reason or another. But these three people on stage, along with, you know, nearly a dozen others, made the choice to tell their story, and it is through that storytelling that the law changes. And I really want to honor that, because there is no case without those witnesses, and there's no case without that bravery. So I think that
For me,
well done. You gave one of the best testimony that I've heard. I remember doing the cross-examination. It felt like, I think he asked, Lex, maybe Lex remember, I think he perhaps made them ask like one or two questions and was like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere, he stopped. But you were so incredible that I felt like it's kind of, and also Amanda and you know, Schneider, it was just, your testimony was so credible and so like, you know, tranchant. Like there was no, how can I say, there was no, nothing to attack from the other part.
And for me personally, it was one of the best experiences to snitch on the police. It was the first time I snitched in my life, but it was so rewarding, so rewarding. So at this moment, Scott, if you could come through. Scott already has the microphone. He's going to be moving through the crowd to see if you guys have any questions. For anyone that's on the panel at the moment, feel free. Scott, where you at, Scott?
I'm back here, man.
Okay, so Scott is behind you. If you have a question, please raise your hand. I can't see, it's too much light.
Don't be shy.
Yes, we got two hands up here.
Thank you. My name is Andrea. I just want to say thank you for your testimony and putting together this event. My question would be for everybody who took part in the trial. So which part of the justice process was the hardest to go through?
Go first? All right. Which part was the hardest in the process? For me, I would say the pressure, the testimony actually. Like, au fur et à mesure qu'on s'approche du procès,
the closer we get to
the date of the court, I just felt like so much pressure on me, so much stress, and that part was really the hardest for me, I would say, you know. But as soon as I got on the stand, and I just remembered what I was fighting for, you know, you just tell your story. It's simple as that. When I get to the stand, I just tell what happened, and I just tell my story. But before that, that was really the hardest part, I would say.
For me, I would say it was two things. I feel like when it comes to racial profiling, I feel like most of you will probably say you're probably numb you don't feel anything, you expect it, so it's like it's no surprise. For me, it was when I was in the courthouse, there's like all of these pictures of all the judges, and every single judge I saw was white. So I took a video of it, and I saw one black woman that was a judge. And it was like, wow. And then coming into the room to just feel like, you know, what made me, and this is why I mentioned to Mike, like, I'm so happy to be there, because that made me feel more comfortable to be in the courtroom where I feel like there is not really, I see it every single day, where a lot of black men do not get justice and they don't get treated the right way. So seeing Mike and Alexandre, who is now a Supreme Court judge, Superior Court judge, seeing him in the room, that just comforted me, and it gave me like that home team vibe. Like, all right, time to snitch. Let's do it. You know.
But for me, if you want me to answer about my case, back in the days, it was me going against a system, and I knew that maybe it was just I was just fighting with Goliath, and I didn't know if I was gonna win. That was a kind of stress, and also the other stress I remember is that me fighting against another black cops. You know, knowing that I used to watch when I was young those movies of United States where you see it was the black cops who was most he was real bad, worse than and then that was the thing was really, it was kind of it was stressful, but also I was mad inside about it, because I remember that day when we went for a negotiation, I said to the police, I said, you know how hard it is for a black man or black anybody who's black to get a job if they have a criminal record. And you almost give me a criminal record for no reason when I have family to feed and I do everything's right. What the system asking me, go to school, get a work, not be in the street, and then you as my brother, okay, you the one who almost get me in trouble. So for me, that was like the stress I had.
All right, so there's another question on the right. Is that Faith?
Yes, it's
all right.
I mean, I don't really need the I think this is directed to Chris. I mean, when you took on this, did you not have a fear that the police would come for you at some point?
Of course I did, yes. At first, I was scared that, okay, so now the police gonna know my name, where I live, what's gonna happen now, you know? But, you know, as I go by, I just realize, like, if they do something, that just give me one more proof to go against them. So I wish they tried, but they didn't.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. Can you hear me?
It's off.
It's off. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. My question is directed more towards Schneider and Amanda, but firstly, Schneider, you mentioned that you have 2 daughters, right? And I know the percentages are higher when it comes to black boys and men when it comes to racial profiling, but there is a reality that girls and women face when it comes to profiling, discrimination with the police, and in some cases really like abuse from the police. So Schneider first and then Amanda I would ask secondly, but Schneider, what does that conversation look like with your daughters specifically? And if that, and is it a conversation at all?
Seriously, it's different. If I don't know, I don't have boys, so the way but I think my daughters, they really are aware about what's going on in the world. Also of my story, I always explain what happened to me, and try to say to my kids, I don't think it's a difference here between when a police stop a guy, but at the end of the day, it's your color. You're still black. So a lot of things they're gonna let pass because it's my daughters go to we're in La Rive Sud, so my daughters go to a school where there's a lot of white kids also. So there's a lot of things I try to say, and I don't like to say it, but you have to work harder, and you have to make sure you tu te comportes différent. Comment je peux dire ça? You behave, you act different because they see your color. So for me, it's that type of conversation I have with my kids, with my daughters. I don't have a boys. If he was a boy, maybe it will be different. But for my girls, is make sure you give 100% every time in school. Everything you're doing in life, give 100% because your colors. And I hate saying that because that's what our mother teaching us. Growing up, my mom always to say, il faut donner 110%. But at the end of the day, sometimes you give your 110% and it's not enough. So I don't want to put that fear on my kids, but I still have to because that's the reality of the society we're living in. And racial profiles also in schools. It's everywhere. So for me, I can say it's really different.
For me, I don't think I've had the same conversation I had with my son, like with my daughter, but we're constantly talking, and I'm glad that she's aware of what we do in terms of work. So I'm always talking to her, and she's always talking to me about different things. Her teacher, Miss McCabe, is teaching her in school, and she has a personality that she's not taking that. She's standing up for herself. She understands when she's being discriminated against or the microaggressions. And, maybe I should have that conversation in depth in terms of racial profiling, but it's a constant conversation all the time just about her Blackness, being in a private school, being the face of the private school oftentimes. So it's constant. And unfortunately, it's something that I'm going to continue to have the conversations with her as she goes to college.
Good evening. One of the questions, what I'd like to answer is that in terms of being a woman and being a Black woman, I know that racial profiling exists because I have been stopped numerous times because it's dark. I've been mistaken for being a man, the type of car I drive. And so in terms of racial profiling, and I think it is a conversation that we have to have with our sons and with our daughters in terms of how they may be perceived in terms of by somebody from the outside. So as a woman, a Black woman, and I'm like 60-something years old now, I've been racial profiled. Stopped by the police, followed, and it's scary. Because if you're on St. Patrick at 1 o'clock in St. Ambrose at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're followed all the way till you stop at your building, and then they put their lights on, and they say, do you live here? And then when you show them, then they say, okay, good night. Exactly. So I think it's a conversation that we need to have and we need to continue to have in terms of our kids.
We got one more question up here.
I don't need it though. I'll use it. It's for Lex. It's not on anyway. Okay, just as you were saying about driving and being pulled over by the police, as Anne just said, do we have a right to continue, even when the lights are on, to go to a space that is lit?
Right.
Put your flashes on.
That you feel safe?
Right.
Yeah.
What is the law concerning that?
Yeah, I wish I could answer yes to that question, but the answer is no.
No?
Your legal obligation is to pull over as soon as it's safe and possible to pull over, regardless, safe for roadside safety, not safe for your safety, unfortunately. Right. So it's basically once the lights go on, you have to pull over your vehicle, have to stop. And otherwise, the risk, and I don't want to give anyone specific legal advice, but as sort of general legal information, otherwise you end up in a situation where the police officer could perceive you to be fleeing or non-complying, and then that escalates kind of the legal risk in the situation. And so I don't like saying it because the situation is sort of like you're choosing between multiple dangers, right? And
especially being Black.
That's it.
Mhm.
That's it.
But-
But I agree with you that should, I mean, it's a basic thing when you think about the, we're always thinking about the safety of the officer. This is how the courts think about it, the safety of the officer, the safety of the road in general, but we have to think like the police pose a safety risk to the public. That's the reality of policing, and so have to really think about, it should be the law that you have the, opportunity to be in a well-lit space. Now, I mean, there's other ways we can think about police accountability, not just in the roadside context, but one question that gets asked a lot in different situations is, do I have the right to film police if I see the police on the street? You do have the right to film police. That's an important thing to think about. Now, obviously, that's always a risk calculation too. But when we think about different ways to sort of keep each other safe, I think that's, the well-lit spot, the having a friend, the keeping an eye on your neighbor. If you see something not quite right going on the street, like being a witness, I think that's part of building a culture of safety.
Wow.
Before we go to the next question, I had a conversation with a young man that's here right now. He's 16 years old, and he explained how he went through 2 situations with racial profiling. And he said he felt that feeling of having no control over the situation and that frustration. What would you tell him in the crowd that feels like there's no need for me to even try to, make a move? What would you tell him when it comes to that frustration and progress?
What I will tell him, I felt the same way actually. Frustrated and having no control over the situation because, police, they have the power, if I can say it like that. So basically, if he wants, he just can't do anything because if he feels like it. But what I will tell him is just do what feels safe for you. If you want to film it, and show him that you know your rights actually. If you feel like he's doing something that's out of line, just tell him that you shouldn't be supposed to do that, and just take the measures necessary to restrain him from stepping on your rights. So basically that's what I will tell him, just to make your rights, show him your rights actually.
If you mind, I will say also, because that happened to me in my case, that sometimes the system gonna play against you. They're gonna try to make sure that you don't go through. Because I remember when my story happened is that they sent me a ticket 6 months after, 6 or 7 months after, and then they only put the name of the black police. And when the case was, it was two police, and a white one and a black one. So they try to make a story that it was not a racial profile, it was a black against black. So that's what how tricky sometimes they can be, and you have to make sure that if you believe in what you're doing it's the purpose of your démarche, you go for it, and then if you believe it's right, so go for it and don't stop, because they're gonna try to stop. They're gonna try to stop you, and that's when I realized how tricky the system are. Yes.
Would it not be the body cameras? Would that not make a difference?
That's a good question.
What?
The body cameras are complicated. It's polarizing. So, I'll summarize the debate, and I don't know how I feel about this.
Okay.
Some people will say police body cameras improve officer accountability. They make police behave better, and they make sure that there is evidence of abuses when they happen.
If they keep them on.
If they keep them on. Other people will say what ends up happening is that the body camera evidence mostly ends up getting used against people who are disproportionately victimized and harmed by the police. It makes it harder to, you get one side of the story, and it's very much told from the officer's perspective because it's literally on the officer's body. And a lot sort of depends on the rules of disclosure, how these things actually end up used in court, depending on the jurisdiction. So I think it's a bit mixed, right? Police body cameras at the end of the day are millions and millions and millions of dollars of investment in police forces. And so if we have to think about where we're going to spend public money, right? The question is, where's the best place to spend those millions of dollars on kind of private companies that make shiny technology for police, or improving safety in our neighborhoods in other ways that don't involve the police at all. And so I think that when I think about this issue, you know, maybe the evidence is mixed on police body cameras, but the evidence is not mixed on making our schools safer, making our parks safer, making sure that young people have jobs and places to go that are safe, and, you know, networks of support. So you know, if there's a choice to make about the city budget, that's where I put my money.
More questions from the crowd? Yes, you got a hand up.
So I guess my question is more for the lawyer. I forgot your name. I'm sorry. Lex. Okay. Hi. I guess my question would be, since, as you mentioned, I mean, it could be for everyone actually, but as you mentioned, the trial is going to go to appeal. So it's kind of suspended, like it's legally, the judgment is legally suspended. So in the meantime, it means discrimination can still happen, right? So my question, I guess, would be, what us as civilians, for the people that as you mentioned, there's not everyone is comfortable to go to court and actually, I guess, not attack the system, but like try to make it right in our current situation. Current climate. So I was wondering what us as, I guess, civilians can we do? What actions can we take to try and make the situation better and try to fight for our rights, maybe outside of the court? Are there ways?
Yeah, you know, actually there's like a lot of great organizers on this panel that have better answers to that than I do. You know, I'm a one-trick pony because I solve these problems through the courts, but, you know, you have people doing this work in the community. So maybe, Spence, I don't know if you want to answer, Schneider, or...
The question was, what can we do to, if you could re-ask the question?
My question is, what can we do outside of the court to actually what are ways for us to fight for our rights outside of the court?
Well, for me, I would just say speak up. That's number one, speak up. Like whenever you see injustice, speak up about it. There's a lot of different organizations right now that are going against this idea of funding the police. Right now, the police are trying to do a lot more, get involved a lot more in schools. And the way that I see that is like, imagine you having open heart surgery and someone wanting to use a rusted chainsaw versus a scalpel. Mm-hmm. That's how I see the police. You get what I'm trying to say? So I feel like speaking up when it comes to the city. Every couple of months, the city has like an open forum where you can talk about different issues that you have. Showing up to meetings like that and talking about different issues that you're going through. Just the other day, the Ville de Montréal, they had a lot of people complaining about racism and discrimination in working for the city. I say speak up as much as possible. Connect to different organizations like DESTA and Defund the Police, other organizations that are already doing the work, and see how you can volunteer, how you can get the word out. But speaking up is number one, I find. Because if you don't speak up, if people don't make like legal complaints and stuff like that, it'll always just be a conversation, but never something in ink, you know? And the last thing I'll say about that is, if it's not written down in paper, it never happened, you know?
You're right, it's true.
Oh, but sometimes I'm kind of radical. So I think what I always say is that us as community, sometimes I realize like a community, I'm talking about the Black community, we work as a wolf, and everybody have their own little style. Yeah, and we need to come together and then unite and then make sure that, because all those things, our profile, racial profile, it's economic, it's all about money. Because that happened to some other community. So I think us as community need to come and then we have one person talking for the community, not 10. Or we need to find a way to standardiser la communication. So, and then I think also we need to stop asking Because I think we are community, we always send a show in the hands. We need to create our own stuff. We need to work together. I think, and scream, like Telemax said, scream about it. Me, I'm gonna say, that's why I say to the kids too, go to the police station. We pay them, our tax pay them. Right. Let them know what they're doing is wrong. If you get arrested for no reason, go to the police and say, I get arrested for no reason. And then one day when it's too much people, maybe something gonna change. But for me, as community, we need to stop being a wolf and then put everything together and work together and make things change.
When you talk about youth and have been encouraging youth to go to the police station, I think what happens, there's an overrepresentation of black youth, black and brown youth in the juvenile court system. So they're not seeing even results from that end. So when they're dealing with the police to make another complaint, to who? Because they're in front of a youth court judge and they're being sentenced 10 times more than their white counterpart. You know, and I see this, I work in social services, so it's something I see on a regular basis, and it's always a fight to get our youth to be represented, to have the courts and the social workers and the prosecutors and the lawyers understand that these black youth are already coming in with, you know, people are already perceiving them as something. So negative. Right now, there is, there's been a study done that there is an overrepresentation of black youth within the juvenile system, never mind the adult system. So they're going from one system to another, and something has to change.
Last week, I met two police who came to the center, and it was a Vietnamese police, and the other one was a Latino. And they grew up in Côte d'Ivoire. They go to all the schools that I went through in Côte d'Ivoire. And we had that conversation, and they said, listen, I'm so happy to be back in my neighborhood, and I can see I make a difference. And the kids, they know how to talk to the kids of Côte d'Ivoire because that's where they grew up. But sometimes that's what I say to one of them. I say, but you work for a system. You're not supposed to be friend. We're not supposed to be friends. You're supposed to put work for order. You understand? So, but the fact that they start bringing back a lot of minority police, I think with time that might change. Something might change. And having that conversation was so cool because I can see that they wanna. Those kids, those two police I have that talk wanna change. They want to change stuff, but sometimes it's what the boss say. But
it's a long process.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, but what can we do? That's what we say economically, that's what we have to think. We have to put our forces together and then grow up and then create something.
Change gonna come. All right, so I was wondering, do you believe that we can build a system within the system?
No.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try.
Seriously.
I'm gonna try. I don't know how to explain it in English, but I'm gonna try to say it in French, and if someone can explain it. We have that, I learned that it's a l'effet Pygmalion. And it's l'effet Pygmalion is I don't know if it's let's say it like that. Let's give him a name. And it's the way that if I keep saying black people, is that how they portray us in the TV? If I keep saying black people, they thief, black people, they gangster. So for the police who just come from Wicolet, so you get up from Wicolet and then they send him to a black neighborhood or where there's a minority, the first thing you're gonna you see a black man, you're gonna see a thief. So I think everything have to start by education. Change the way that we educate our police. So I think that's when we can change our system. And the system is education, the school system also. So everything starts there. I think education, if we did change the education system, maybe, but That's a good question because I cannot answer it because the system is a system.
Well, to try to respond to your question, I would say we already do have a system. You feel me? I feel like just looking in this room, I see so many people that work in the community on so many different levels, people that address trauma, people that are doing social work, people that are prefects in their school and they're standing up because they feel like regardless if they're the only black person in the school, they need to represent. I feel like we're already doing that. Can the system be more effective? Absolutely. Can the system be much more powerful and have more members involved? Absolutely. Just looking right in my direction, I see a powerful black woman right in front of me. I see a connection between these two black women who've made a connection to help people that have got released from prison and find a way to combine their forces and to strengthen that network. You get what I'm trying to say? I look in the direction of Miss Faith, who has found different ways to help people in social work and, find different ways to help that system. I see Rosetta over here looking at me and I'm like, her going into prisons to help people with trauma. I feel like we already have a system and we're learning how to work in that system without being part of that system. So we are not influenced, we are not ran by that system. And I feel like that's what community work is. You feel me? I just feel like you said, like he said, the main thing. It's us working better together. In Montreal, of course, there's a very big divide because of language. You feel me? This English and French language separates us a lot, so it dilutes our voice. So that's something that I would say as well. Just us working together, bridging that gap, and that's what's up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank everybody on stage for their contribution tonight, for coming out. Chris, thank you very much. We really appreciate you telling your story. And I also want to remind everybody here that this is also a fundraiser for the Black Legal Action Fund at DESTA. So if you can, please go to the DESTA website and make a donation. We could really use your support, and we appreciate you coming out tonight.
Yes. We're not done yet. We're not done yet. Just a couple more things before we invite one of the greatest reggae artists that has been traveling the world. He's here with us tonight, but before I introduce him to the stage, by show of hands, how many of you know the name Patrice Luamba? Lumumba. Okay, just a couple hands. Something that is really funny, we were talking the other day. Patrice?
Yes. But actually, Patrice Lumumba is he ran the Congo for a while and he freed his people from the Belgium.
Mm-hmm. From colonialism.
Yeah, it's from thank you, colonialism. So what he did is he fought for his people, and the funny thing that we were speaking the other day is because my last name is Luamba, his last name is Lumumba, and we have some similarities. That's the funny thing because we're both fighting for free our people from the shackles of what's restraining us. And actually, I've read about him, Patrice Lumumba, and he's really inspiring to me because what he's doing, I want to follow his footsteps actually. Mm-hmm. And it's really just a role model for me, and what he did was amazing, and that's it.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone has any closing remarks, if everyone has a last word to say, anyone have something to say before we move on to King Shadrach? Any last words you want to share?
Yeah, but actually I just want to thank DESTA for the opportunity to just have this amazing event with all these beautiful people in front of me and just talk about the situation, about us, So I just wish we have more like events like this, like Black people events, you know. White people's authority, we're welcome too, but but unity, exactly, you know, just have amazing events like this with no matter what, that a panel, like a showcase, no matter what it is, but just have events with Black people. This is so amazing to see, and I'm glad to be a part of it, you know. So thank you guys for coming in today, and I wish you guys a really good luck in everything, you know.
You too.
Me, I would like to say a big thanks, chapeau, à Patrice, and thank you because you give hope also to my daughters, to all the youth I'm working with. So t'as créé les pas. So for me, big chapeau, and then you the new, for me, you the new Malcolm X of Quebec. You the new, because it's true, because he take young kids now, because as a community, sometimes on vit dans le passé. I don't know, sometimes on est très nostalgique. So now we need to leave those one behind and create our own story now. And that's what you're doing. Now you're creating a story for the new generation who's coming. Malcolm X or Martin Luther King, it was a long time ago for us. But now you're the new, and I love them, but now you create something new for my kids and for the new society. And thank you to you also, Telemat, to invite me. And we also have allies. Thank you very much. That change is not going to be only, how can I say that? We need people to support us. It's not because you're yellow, you're green. It's everybody who have to put their hands together to change that system. And thank you everybody to come and chapeau. And keep doing what we do with the organization. Thank you very much. And keep doing what you guys doing for the community. And we need more like this, more and more and more.
I don't know how I feel about ally, maybe like co-conspirators. Okay, like maybe the only thing I'd add is that, you know, when we took this case, there were a lot of people who told us it was impossible to do. Okay, a lot of people, Mike, even more than me. You know, the number of times he was, you know, told like, don't even bother, or you know, you're not the right fit for this, or it's unwinnable, or it's not the right time. So I think that for me, this case is a good reminder that we have to, like, we got to think today what seems impossible, and then we got to go do that work. You know, it's easy to spend our time worrying about the, you know, a grand unified theory of social change. You know, what's the perfect tactic? Do we make change from within or without or whatever? You know, there's enough injustice to go around. Like, pick a problem, let's work on it, and let's figure out what those impossible things are, and let's go make them happen.
For me, my last words would just be, I'm just thankful for you guys, and just thankful to be a part of history. And I also want to say, someone was also supposed to be part of this panel. He got some bad news regarding his case, but I just want to take the time to shout him out and say we appreciate him for sharing from Stories from the Inside Out, and everybody else that's been a part of DESTA's podcast, Stories from the Inside Out. Yeah.
So Mike? You still there, Mike?
Yes, I'm still there. It's been, you know, hearing everyone talk it's quite inspiring and also quite, you know, giving me a lot of motivation. I would say that this entire endeavor, this entire adventure was quite you know, it's quite something. It's kind of I would say that after the judgment came out, I kind of like, it felt like I was holding my breath for 3 years, and when the judgment came out, it was kind of the first moment I started breathing and hearing you, like, you know, hearing, you know, everyone, all you know, the involvement in the courage of like everyone I've been hearing, and just, you know, it's kind of refreshing to be able to talk openly about this, about the file. It's also quite refreshing to be able to talk amongst people that I trust and that I think we have we share a trust among one another, and it's kind of it's kind of explains also why I didn't speak. I mean, I haven't given interviews because I truly believe in what we're doing. I truly believe that it's bringing a change, and I believe that we need to remain focused on the goal, because I think that too many people in the communities are taking wrong direction to try to fix the issue. But I think we need to remain focused, and we need to always remember why we're doing something, because it's often we forget this and we kind of derail. So that's my that's what I wanted to say.
So I just say, of course, thank you to everyone that is on the stage. Thank you for everyone that is here, everyone that is doing work behind the scenes that we probably will never even hear about. I just want to say thank you. Again, you don't know how much I admire you, bro. You feel me? And I'll try my best to show you how much I admire you. And honestly, I think what he said is true. You get what I mean? You literally changed the law. You get what I mean? Your name will be etched in history forever. You get what I'm trying to say? Forever. And because of you, you gave us the opportunity to have part of that history and everybody in the room. And you proved that you can never be too young. You can never be too dark. You can never be too this. You can never be too that. It's not about age. It's not about who you know. It's not about what you know. It's about what you're willing to stand for, regardless of the pressure that you feel. And for you to deal with all that pressure in your early 20s, bro, not even 25, to deal with all that pressure, I can't imagine you in your 30s, bro. You feel me? So, yes. So, to lighten up the mood, if we could all take a quick stand, we have one of the greatest reggae artists with us tonight. His name is King Shadrach, but he's only going to come up if y'all going to stand up and clap. That's the only way that he's going to come up. King Shadrach has been with us as we've been touring different prisons. And when I tell you, when this guy is in prison, he is lighting up the whole place. Whether he has the best sound system or he has a paper cup, literally, like he shuts the place down. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Respect everybody, Panpal. Greetings, how are you guys doing? Everything all right? All right, my name is King Shadrach from Montego Bay, Jamaica. I'm a black man living in Montreal. You don't know, I don't need to say anything else, right? Mr. DJ, can I get some reading for the people? Yeah, thank you, friends. Amanda. Let me say no more things. Hey. World and reggae musical box. Hey. Keep me rocking with me daughter. World and reggae musical jump. South side, south side. So welcome to Jam from? Can I get some microphone on stage? I can't hear myself. I'm a son. So me sing, tell him no make me go for. Yeah man, that is so good. Alright? Are you ready? So me sing, tell him no make me go for. Get a infinite of life. It's like they want me so for them, they want me see me try. They want me bring me hungry and me baby mama cry. Me tired of the promises, they fed up on the lie. Tell him no make me go for. Get a infinite of life. It's like they want me so for them, they want me see me try. They want me bring me hungry and me baby mama cry. Me tired of the promises, they fed up on the lie. I'm over time and me have to look at what I want. Me can't plant, much less fit plant. Can't afford the farm, still I pay for the farm. Tell them Rasta man come to ring them alarm. What them a go do, them make a Satan do me. Move them little bastard and the youth them hungry. Oh hard man a work, get the pocket empty for me. Do what me say, never win up the fancy never. We Adidas only the old Nike. You see me in the dance, me say I want foot and party. She mind to school and me a put back a walkie. Me tell them the dance we party. Me sing, say tell him no make me go forget a youth forget a lie. It's like they want me suffer, they don't want to see me try. They want me keep me hungry and me baby mama cry. I'm tired of the promises. I said, we want eat for my son negotiable. So honey butter some is not affordable. Honey this is the every dark bandable. Honey you them know what they them not manageable. I'm still rising cause you get it reasonable. I'm not your good at the one they put on another level. Me tell you that they created and feasible. Oh God that's salvation on another level. Tell them no make me go forget a good forget a lie. It's like they want me suffer, they want me see me try. They want me keep the young girl, the baby mama cry. I'm tired of the promises, fed up on the lie I say. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Black people, and this I wanna offer you. And this I wanna offer. And then they sing, I sing everything. Tell them no make me go forget a good forget a lie. It's like they want me suffer, they don't want me see me try. They want me keep the young girl, the baby mama cry. Me tired of it. Next track. Pull them on back, pull them on. Hey, so everyone, he provides something don't simple. Some have it, but for some it's not affordable. Mr. DJ, next track. Yeah, big up yourself. That one is called The Make We Go For. See? This one is called Peace, Love and Unity. Luamba. It's fiction rock, you know. Hey, talking to the world. Not only my neighborhood. We want some unity. And we need that peaceful. Hey, I'm talking to the world. Yeah. Not only my neighborhood. We want some unity. And we need that peaceful. Oh, Lord and the Lord. Peace, love and unity. We don't have to want for peace. Peace, love and unity. black man. King Shanrock, check it out, man. Spotify, everything. Listen up. And it's a way, he's not a black man. And wave, he's not a black plan. Somebody asked me, where is our leader? We looking for a black liberator. And it's a way, where is our black man? And where is our black plan? Somebody asked me, where is our leader? We looking for a so right now, Marcus Garvey would have turned in on him grave. Just to see how the black people are behave. We now unite among ourselves in our trade. We stand from plan from the next slavery day. We kill we one another, still a heart to the grave. We kill we one another, still a heart to the grave. It seems like they both a piece of ticking on the head. It look like we both a piece of. And when they say that, we say, hey, he's not a black man. Hey, he's not a black man. Somebody asked me, where is our leader? We looking for a black liberator. And where he's not a black man. And where he's not a black plan. Somebody asked me, where is our leader? We looking for a liberator. Listen, red man a talk about black man and talk about only color. Not man black, but they don't know the hour. Talk about you and them and talk about shower. Talk about power, me say talk about power. It feels like the world are really fighting for power. And don't be a hater from the UK in a scholar. All them a deal with a heads and shatter. Go them a shatter them and they say, it's the way. He's our black man. And where he's our black plan. Somebody asked him, where is our leader? We looking for a black liberator. And where he's our black man. Next time, Mr. DJ. This one is called Black Man, alright? Black liberation. There's good and evil. We jump down. Why raise the time on the most high sons of men? Yeah. Listen good. Reach man's bed, he's in the city. Destruction of the poor is in poverty. No, 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 yeah. Destruction of your soul is vanity. Yeah, yeah. And he say, I wanna rule my destiny. Oh, oh, and I wanna rule my destiny. Give me call, destiny. Oh, mama, look from there, you call me. Oh, mama, look from there, you call me. I wanna rule my destiny. La, 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 la. I'm in death, I'm the doctor. I look just so much, they keep fighting me. I'm not giving up. Maybe rains and silence in my spiritual hope. We don't overstanding, but better be too much. Give my protection in that night. But even the pestilence that walk in the daylight. Destiny, oh mama, look from there, you call me. Destiny, oh mama, look from there, you call me. I wanna rule, Lord, and I believe on rule. And say, they can't stop. Lord, we have them in the vision, and even they have decision. We journey beginning, we got rock of iron. Who know not the destiny of an ex-man? Why hold him? Set him free for too long and high. I wanna rule, la 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 la. This is high and high. I wanna rule. Next track is an DJ. Thank you. One more before I go. Experts. Merci beaucoup. Amanda, big up yourself, see? Hey, Rosetta, I'm see you. Remember?